The cost of living is going up and it's affecting everyone, but low-income individuals and families are feeling the impact the most. The IRS made changes to taxes, which means most people will have to pay more than they did last year. This is particularly challenging for those who are already struggling to make ends meet. There are concerns about food shortages, the supply chain disruptions, labor shortages in the food industry are all affecting people directly at home. Natural disasters with wildfires and droughts have made things even worse. Low-income families are finding it tough to access basic necessities like food, and the long lines at food banks and pantries show the growing need for assistance. We'll get into that today. All of these challenges can make it difficult for people to break out of poverty. And it's so hard to focus on anything when you can't afford the basics. And it can be tough to find a way forward. Now more than ever, we must understand the pillars of prosperity. That's this video that I talk about right here, okay? I posted it. It is a few videos before this one. I highly recommend checking it out because that's going to explain what we need to do. That is related to self-sufficiency and preparation, as well as increasing your income. These things are so key right now, okay? It is something that I believe everybody should be paying attention to. I want to cover what's happening. I want to look at these things to see what's actually going on, not what the mainstream is going to tell you. Let's look at it beginning with this. Well, all of that inflation data has come out, and you could see it's very clear. US borrowing costs are now at 2007 levels. Things are getting much more expensive. And when you have a lot of debt, certainly it's going to be a problem to be able to manage that, right? Because if your income is not keeping up with the level of those rates that you're borrowing at, you got a problem. That goes for the nation as well. You can see at this time, well, looking at the yield on the 10-year treasury bonds, they have gone up considerably. Look at anything, they've all gone up. Imagine being able to get as much as 5% on, I think it was a 6-month treasury, 5%. We haven't seen it in a very long time. And so that means good for you in a sense as an investor potentially, but that's very hard for them to keep up at these levels. It shows the weakness that's going on. It really does show weakness. Although we want higher interest, we don't want 0% interest rates, but we know, you and I both know that this can't be sustained because there's way too much debt. The rise in borrowing costs could affect consumer spending and business investment, potentially leading to a slowdown in the economy. And that's what we need to get at right now. For families at the lower end of the income spectrum, shifting the burden of debt on a monthly basis can rapidly become unbearable. This individual here is predicting a K-shaped consumer spending pattern this year. High-income households continuing to spend, while lower-income households slow their economic activity. All of that has basically already started to occur. And I think it's really important to see that, because when you look at like GDP numbers or like total spend, like these sort of generic pieces of information that the media wants to push out, you're not going to understand what's really happening. So let's go in a little bit further here, okay? Inflation boosted the 2023 federal income tax brackets. Here's how your taxes may compare to 2022. Really key stuff. The IRS adjusted the tax brackets and other tax provisions to account for inflation. So if inflation's gone up, that means you got to pay more as well. They're never going to get enough of your tax dollars. It doesn't matter. They have record tax all the time. Every year, more taxes are coming in than they had the year before, but it's never enough because they spend much more. You know how the government works? Talk to any government employee that works, directly for the city and kind of sees what happens. They will tell you they must, it is a fact, they must spend more this time around than they did the previous time, or else their budget will get slashed. So what happens towards the end of the year especially? They start working on projects that they didn't even know they needed. They tear up roads that really didn't need to be torn up, but they say, hey, let's just do that road over there. Okay, let's make it happen. Tear it up. Meanwhile, half the infrastructure elsewhere is just breaking down, but that's the way it works. Okay, you look here, just showing us that the changes are expected to result in a higher tax bill for most taxpayers compared to the previous year. Taxpayers may want to consider adjusting their withholding to avoid a large tax bill when filing their taxes. That's what they say. Of course, they always want to do this, never providing actual solutions, but that's why I talk about the pillars of prosperity. I wanted to show you something about Jerome, my buddy, Jerome Powell. You know him. Well, Powell will have to push rates even higher for the Fed to get inflation to 2%. 2% is part of their mandate. They claim that they want to get inflation to 2%. Why is it not 2.1%? And why is it not 1.9%? Well, governments around the world all went to 2%. Did you see that video I did, by the way, telling you exactly why? Well, this goes back to several years ago, many decades ago, in fact, where one central bank just kind of said, well, we're going to do 2%. Like it was just like a random thing. And then all the others started to do that. In fact, the Fed was the last one to join on the 2% bandwagon. There we are today. And the belief is that they're going to increase that target because they, quite frankly, can't get to 2%. Well, Jerome Powell may have to increase interest rates further to reach the central bank inflation target of 2% because inflation expectations have risen and the market may require more action to actually bring that down. So they want to have 2% over time. That's what they say, which basically means for the foreseeable future, 2% is not in the cards. It's just not. What would bring it down to 2%? Because we know that they're not going to increase interest rates dramatically, and that is a huge economic contraction, like heavy recession into depression. That would bring inflation down. There's no question about it. Okay. There are some out there telling you that there's a lot of deflation happening today. I really don't know where that's coming from. We could argue about the actual level of inflation, but there's this strange group of people out there talking about deflation, and certainly could come. I don't really see that in many cases. Like look at housing prices. Have they deflated really though? I mean, from the peak, sure, but they're not deflated in any way. So the froth has come off. That's great, but we need to see a lot more from these central banks to get that to be really deflate, and I hope they do. Bank of Canada risks falling too far behind the Fed, according to Scotiabank. Why? Because they want to pause right now. And by the time you're watching this video, the new statement has probably already come out for the Bank of Canada. The expectation is that they're not going to increase interest rates because, hey, want to keep a bubble going, don't you? The housing prices are so absolutely unaffordable. They've barely come down and already they got scared. It's crazy. We are seeing a decline in employers' willingness to spend to hire in many industries despite the labor shortage as they become increasingly cautious due to a potential recession in the US. So you see what's happening with the job situation. The central banks are doing one thing and the businesses are responding to it as a result. That is really key. That I think is something that shouldn't be ignored, okay? Because they're all interconnected. And I try to piece this together for you. I try to give you those takeaways, especially now. I'm trying to focus on them more, and that's where we are at right now, okay? So the next one is where we get into some interesting stuff. The food shortages. Now we're talking, okay? Because food shortages are something that it's many different avenues, many different reasons. There's a lot happening, but I want to show you this right now. American food supply in real danger, expected to get worse in 2023. I've read many articles like this to you. I've shown all kinds of things. Recently, the video on China that I did talking about how China is basically spending a lot of money into trying to deal with their own agriculture because they don't want to have to rely on other partners, and I don't think that partner is Argentina, and I don't think that partner is Brazil. I believe they're talking about the United States, because we saw what happened with the tariff war and then the so-called trade agreement, the trade pact, that never happened, never materialized. All of these things, I think it's sending a signal. So for a lot of people, they're not going to get that signal, but you see it here. You see that. China's basically saying, we don't want to deal with the US like we did before. And the US is, they're both basically fighting back and forth. Food shortages in the US are a growing concern, with supply chain disruptions and labor shortages impacting the food industry. Natural disasters such as wildfires and droughts have also contributed to crop losses and reduced yields. These factors, combined with rising inflation and economic instability, could lead to even more food shortages in 2023. Very unfortunate circumstances here, and that's why I tell people all the time, pillars of prosperity, get your situation in order. Even the basics. Having, dried foods, non-perishable foods in your house makes a difference. So do it. Don't buy one pack of pasta. Don't buy one little bag of rice. Buy 5, buy 10, buy as many as you can preserve. Why not? Why wouldn't you? It's stuff you'll eat anyway. Why not just buy much more of it? Really? Please let me know. If you can preserve it, why wouldn't you buy more of it? If you know that price is going to be twice as expensive, 3 times as expensive at some point in the future, why not just buy it today at today's price? It's like getting it on sale. In fact, if you see a sale, that would be the time. Look at this. A mile-long line for free food offers a warning as benefits end. So we could see this. It's not the first time, all throughout 2020, a lot of this was happening. And so we're watching this in many different circumstances where people need food and they can't afford it. Yeah, are some people in a situation in which they maybe are taking advantage? Sure, absolutely. But I don't think many people are going to wait in a mile-long line to get food if they really didn't need it. Seems like you'd probably be wasting a lot of gas doing this anyway. I'm not sure the cost-benefit analysis on that, but I think the point is pretty clear. Many low-income Americans are struggling to access basic necessities such as food after the benefits ended. Long lines at food banks and pantries have become a common sight across the country. Some experts warn that the situation may get worse as the cost of living continues to rise. Certainly, all those benefits going away, it will impact people and already has. So we see the effects coming in, and it has a direct impact on people. So what are the banks doing? Well, I can tell you something. The US banks are finally being forced to raise rates on deposits. Yes. And why are they doing that? Because they're really nice? No, it's because they realize that they have to. Money is leaving and it's going towards things like treasuries. It's going towards things that will really net a higher yield for them. They're making basically zero on their deposits, so why would they keep it there? They're putting it into things like treasuries. That's why I talk about that. That's why we come full circle. But just one more, since you stuck with me. AI learns to outsmart humans in video games and real life. And this is a hot topic all the time. We're seeing it, artificial intelligence, robotics. They're doing things that humans were doing before. And now they're doing it better. It isn't every industry and it doesn't happen overnight, but we can see that in many cases, they do a much better job. In fact, let me tell you a personal experience. I had recently signed up to a service paying 1,000, I think it was 1,000 US dollars for someone to create a listing on Amazon. Okay, work it out, having all the data. It's not just, typing a bunch of stuff. It was redoing what I already had, saying, hey, got professionals here, they could do a better job. In fact, the job wasn't better. It was much worse than what I had initially had. And in fact, things like OpenAI can provide a much better output if you know how to use it. You can't just type a few words. It won't work like that. You got to know the keywords. You have to know how to do all these things. Anyway, the point is, those services are in big trouble because they don't know how to do it properly. And they unfortunately, I'm not going to name names, but big problems because the AI is better and I've tested it. The AI is better and I've tested it. People who are operating in front of their computers and that's their job, they're in big trouble. Robots, if you're turning a knob all day, if you're switching this, if you're an Amazon worker putting something into a box all day, your job is gone. You have to retool, you have to retrain. This is a warning. You have an opportunity now. I talk about the pillars of prosperity. Please learn about these things. You could search pillars of prosperity, the Money GPS. That's just one aspect, but look into it, dig deep into it, and try to figure this out because we are running out of time. That is my message to you. The future is bright, as they say, but we need to be watching what happens. It is a concern for so many people, and I just hope that you will be able to wake up to the real deal information. If you appreciate the message, then hit that like button, and I'll see you tomorrow. Take care.